3930. Welcome to your own committee, Representative Hill. Would you like to move your bill before us
That would be the motion, Chair.
to lay over for further discussion? And with that, why don't you go ahead and start your presentation?
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Chair Joachim and members. Today I'm bringing forward House File 3930. This is a bill that seeks to make progress in the area of teacher retention. My history with this issue has spanned my entire career, and I first heard about the need to support teacher retention during my undergraduate years. It was 30 years ago, and we're still wrestling with this problem today. I was told repeatedly by professors that if I could make it through the first 5 years of a teaching career, then I was likely to stick around for the long haul. And I can remember a professor openly telling our class that 30 to 50% of us would not reach that 5-year mark. Again, that was 30 years ago. It's an issue we're still facing today. Today here in Minnesota, more than 1 in 3 new educators leave the teaching profession in their first 5 years. Today here in Minnesota, 1 in 3 licensed Minnesota educators are choosing not to teach. Today, 70% of Minnesota school districts report having at least 1 teacher position vacancy. Teacher retention isn't just about keeping experience and expertise in our classroom and in our classrooms working with our students. It's also an economic issue as well. The turnover of 1 teacher position can have costs of up to $20,000 associated with it. One challenge surrounding this issue is recruiting students into the profession, but retention of those who get started in teaching is what this bill is all about. Today, I'm joined up front here by Nathan Eklund and Aaron Rabb from Vital Network, here to share more about their successful work addressing this matter particularly in North Dakota. So I'd like to turn it over to them for their testimony.
Thank you. Please state your name for the record and proceed.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Nathan Eklund. I am the founder of Vital Network.
Good afternoon, Chair, members of the committee. Apologies for my voice this morning. I have a 2nd grader, which means I get all of the germs in the house, but I'm at the end of it, so it shouldn't be still. But my name is Dr. Aaron Rabb, and I'm the Chief Strategy and Impact Officer at Vital Network.
Go ahead and start your presentation.
Thank you very much. Go ahead, Aaron. So, and thank you for the introduction, which really, I think, did a fantastic job of sort of showing the scope of the challenge of teacher retention. Currently in the United States of America, teacher retention and teacher burnout is highest in education, self-reported rates of burnout professionally. And we know that that is only an increasing number as more educators actually are considering leaving the profession sooner than they had originally planned. But we also know, and from a message of hope and of practice, that when educators are engaged in the decision-making, communication, and sort of management of their daily experience, that they are more likely to stay. I myself am a longtime Minnesota educator who has spent the last 20 years of my career focused entirely on creating schools that are indeed great places to work. I would encourage you tonight to go home and Google what are the best schools to work in Minnesota, or find best places to work in Minnesota and see how many schools are cited. And so I think really this is a promising conversation around how we organize our school districts around being viable and valuable places to teach and to lead. So from Vital's perspective, we really focus all of our energies not so much on addressing necessarily that there is a shortage, but rather that we can shore up the retention crisis that we continually face by addressing the daily working conditions in our schools. So we have a dual mission, really, from our approach, and one is indeed to work directly with building principals, teacher leadership teams, school cabinets, school boards, and surrounding communities to really make these workplaces exceptional. But we do that with the broader ambition of elevating the whole of the profession. What happens to the teaching profession when we really think about schools as workplaces, when we really think about the conditions in which our adults are working every day. So let's briefly kind of look at Minnesota specifically as per the introduction.
Great. Thanks, Nate. Okay. Somebody's going to have to give me a sign if you can't hear me or understand me. I'm just going to pass it over to Nate, okay? I'll just bring this up. This is from Learning Policy Institute. This is not our data. This is from national data. Looking across the U.S., we're actually in the third quintile for teaching attractiveness nationally. Nearby states, North Dakota, Wisconsin, Nebraska, all are doing better in terms of the teaching profession, teaching attractiveness. I will say we work, you'll hear more about this in a moment, we work across the state of North Dakota. I know for a fact that they are coming over here and recruiting in Minnesota for our educators to bring them there. And when we think about educators as workers in schools and workplaces, I come from a whole family of educators, a long line of educators. I've been in education for 20 years. We don't talk about schools this way, right? We talk about schools as places of learning, which they are. And teachers go to work every day, and they have colleagues, and they have a boss, and they have a workplace. 52% of Minnesota educators say that that school climate, especially leadership support, drives their exit. 66% of teachers who left the profession say that work-life balance is better in their new job, and 58% of teachers who left said their workload was more manageable. It turns out that when teachers come into the profession, and I just want to say for the record, we believe in paying teachers well. We believe teachers should be paid well. It turns out that oftentimes when they come into the job, the reason they leave is not always the pay. The reason they leave is the conditions of their workplace. In Minnesota, and thank you, Representative, for mentioning this already, we have about 20,846 positions that are open. That's about 15% of all positions. 7 in 10 districts report vacancies, and yet we have 38,000 teachers who are licensed, fully licensed, Tier 3 and 4, who just aren't working anymore. They're not teaching anymore. They've left the profession entirely. So we have more people, more teachers not working in Minnesota who are licensed than we have open positions. And this is costing us as a state. So it costs learning. Every time you have a teacher turnover, we lose about a half a year of student learning. It costs up to $20,000 per teacher, and this is HR costs and onboarding, offboarding, getting someone up to date, never mind if the position's actually open for a month or two in the classroom. And that's looking at $90 to $190 million annually to Minnesota just in turnover costs. We've spent a lot of money on recruiting teachers. We think this is really important. This is very, very important to be recruiting new people into the profession. We've spent about $200 million in the last couple years on that, but the return on investment, if you are losing a third to half of your teachers in the first 5 years, is going to be very low. And I'll just add, we have a number of initiatives we really want to be successful in Minnesota, the READ Act, et cetera. If you were going to spend a lot of money training teachers and then you lose a third to a half of them, you're losing that return on investment. We've got to keep our teachers there if we want these initiatives to work.
The good news, I think, to share is that this is possible.
I get all the bad news.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, you know, we can redivide next time. We know that retention really can be substantially driven by improvements to the working conditions in our schools. And so when we think about not just satisfaction, the mental health, the well-being of our educators, but actually executing their jobs, how it is that the schools are organized, how the schools are equipping educators, has a profound impact on retention rates and the length of tenure of our staff. We focus primarily in our work on the mechanics of schoolwork, which really looks at things like time management, how educator voice is informing and at the center of how schools operate. And we look also at levels of care and support that are both systematized inside of the schools, as well as how we forge stronger connections between our communities and our districts. And so to stay on the good news train for a minute, we are currently working statewide in the state of North Dakota through appropriated funds through their legislature. We are working with nearly 50% of the educators in that state and are starting to see the very gains that we are eager to have Minnesota experience as well. This is a lot to take in on this, but Dr. Rao, I'm going to let you summarize it, and you get to share the good news on this one.
No. Well, the good news is there, but I've also been told that we need to be very brief, that folks are tired, that you want to go home. So I am going to say that all the data is here. The big takeaway here is that this is improving what we are seeing in our first kind of cohort statewide. We've been doing this work for a long time, but really getting to work across the whole region is looking very, very good. You can see the percentage changes. We'd be happy to answer any questions about this. But importantly, we work across both urban and rural settings, which is also very important in Minnesota, that we are seeing these changes. And in fact, rural schools saw just slightly higher percentage increases than our urban, slightly. We are doing well in both places, but that it's really working in both.
Lastly, I would just like to note that the approach I think that is most powerful in this work is that it's really a matter of integrating with existing systems, programs, associations, and organizing principles within the contexts in which we work. And so we are wholly focused on working with both at the regional levels as well as statewide levels, and also sharing data actively at statewide to inform policy, to inform how it is that we manage and partner with our school districts. And so we are here to speak on behalf of an investment at a state level in terms of how it is that we can work with the Department of Education and other associations to really leverage the entirety of the profession. Together in this work, we're bulldogs, that we can, that the vitality and retention are possible when we do the hard work of making work work. And so we are here to support this bill and would be eager to answer any and all of your questions.
Thank you. I think I'm going to have you, we have one more testifier. I'll have one of you step aside and then be around for questions, and I'll call up our next testifier, Dr. Justin Killian. Once you get settled, go ahead and please state your name for the record and proceed.
Chair, members of the committee, Representative Hill, thank you. My name is Dr. Justin Killian, and I'm a policy researcher with Education Minnesota. On behalf of the more than 80,000 licensed and unlicensed educators that make up our membership, I'm here to speak in favor of anything that works on teacher retention, something we've been talking about for more than a decade. I want to thank Representative Hill for bringing this forward because it's a new approach. As the previous speakers have talked about, retention sometimes gets ignored. The members of Education Minnesota want to thank all of you at the legislature for the investments you've made in pathway programs, apprenticeships, grow your own programs. You've done some really great stuff with higher education financial relief. But these programs are putting water into the bucket, and if you'll remember the slide from my colleague's slideshow, that bucket is full of holes, and that water keeps pouring out of that bucket. And so we have to do something to start plugging those holes. This bill starts to correct the fact that 36% of professional licensed teachers in Minnesota, again, that's 38,601 people, have left the job of teaching to move on to some other profession. Education Minnesota studies recruitment and retention on an ongoing basis. And our most recent data collection of our members was probably one of the most sad data sets I've ever had to sit through and analyze as a researcher. And so I want to share some direct quotes from my members with all of you. Quote, "I am leaving the profession. I have never been so stressed in my life as I am right now. The anxiety that envelops my chest daily as I enter my building is overwhelming." That teacher's colleague said, "Yeah, I can echo that. Simply put, things are not good. We are not well." Another told me, quote, "I've been sworn at, screamed at, accused of not teaching or doing my job, and I've been threatened. When you have nothing left to give, you cannot continue to fight. I do not have that fight any longer. I'm a shell of a person that I was 2 years ago." Many talked to me about divorce. Many talked to me about weight gain. And for the first time in my role at Education Minnesota, I had not one, not two, but 6 talk to me about the fact that they think about suicide on a weekly basis. Our members told us loud and clear that it was lack of workplace supports, no supports for student mental health, and demanding workloads that were leading to them leaving the profession because of health concerns, because of what's falling apart at home. And they were very loud and clear that the toxic positivity that is used to try and stop this isn't working. In fact, I had a member tell me if one more person walks into my classroom with a Snickers bar and tells me to smile and remember my why, I'm going to lose it. The last thing I'd like to leave you with is a statistic, and I fact-checked myself this morning because I use this statistic a lot. It's still true. According to the National Institute of Health, which professions have the highest urinary tract infections? The number one is long-haul truckers. But do you know who comes in a really close second and third place? Teachers and nurses. We're not even giving these people the time to go to the bathroom during their day, and we're asking why they're fleeing this profession. So we thank Representative Hill for bringing this effort forward to start correcting some of this. We have to give attention to the well-being of our teachers, because if they're not well, we're never going to do better for the mental health of our students. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you. Representative Hill, you had a
Thank you,
comment, and
and
then we'll
thank you
go to
to the-
member questions.
To the testifiers, and just in closing, I wanted to bring this bill forward because the Vital Network was the first entity that could demonstrate with data that they have effective ways to address this issue. And I really want to thank them for their presentation and their work, and begin the conversation here at the Capitol to talk about this as we move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, and I have a list started. I'll go to Vice Chair Clardy first.
Thanks for bringing this bill forward. So, as you know, I recently retired after 30 years, and this conversation was going on back then, and it's not gotten any better. But if we always start with having the kids in the center, all our decisions are really easy. So I just made a couple notes on things that this bill does. You're investing in kids and students. You're creating stronger relationships. Student achievement is going up. Higher quality of instruction. And like you had talked about, like the reading instruction for Reading Core. And school stability, which is what we want. And that leads into the community too. So you have a stable school, you have a stable community. So thanks for bringing this important bill forward. I fully support it.
Thank you, Vice Chair Clardy. Representative Quam?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I'm hearing, well, we heard from one testifier a lot of the negatives, but there are some school districts that actually teachers are moving to after they've been teaching for a while. And frankly, we should start focusing on, we got districts where we don't have these problems. The teachers are happy, that, you know, they're going from one district to this district or that. You need to look at the positives and help you see success, and then cross-pollinate that instead of, I hear a lot of focusing on the negatives. Well, the negatives you got to realize, but we have districts that are working, districts that are very successful for their students, and let us learn and cross-pollinate what works to the other districts. That's just my input to the people.
Representative Hill, any, or if that, how you nod your head, did you want to say anything, or should I move to the next? Okay.
Thank you, Chair.
Oh, you wanted to say something?
that
Go
be
ahead. Just briefly, though.
Yes. Thank you, Representative Kwan, for that. And it is one of the kind of core design elements of how we work, actually, is connecting our districts with one another to think about how do we learn across and share our lessons across. So, oh, this is working for us and our educators in this district. Oh, I didn't even know you could use, I didn't even think that you could structure your time that way, or we could move to an early out in this way, or we could restructure our PLC in this way. And I think you're exactly right that a big part of it is looking at those, we call them green spots, right? They're bright spots in a state and in a region, and how do small districts learn from other small districts and larger districts. So I absolutely agree that a big part of it is looking and learning, and that's the network part of how do we kind of share across the network to make sure we raise up everyone rather than having everyone trying to go to 3 districts.
Thank you. Representative Hudson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think this is one of those scenarios where the dots are almost connecting for me, but they're not quite there. And it's probably just because of my lack of familiarity with the specific work that you guys have done and how it interacts and interplays with more external factors that I think have really contributed to the type of burnout that you're talking about, right? So when we first started hearing the presentation, kind of leaning back skeptically thinking to myself, well, how does this address the issue of your retirement being subpar or your pay being subpar or the bureaucracy that you have to deal with, the reports you have to write, all the things that are imposed on time and bandwidth that might be the root causes of why people are feeling the way they're feeling about the direction of the profession. Issues like school discipline, what do you have to endure, what do you have to tolerate from the student body, and so my instinct is to say, I don't know how this addresses any of that. At the same time, from what I've been able to glean, and we've been sitting here researching and what have you, it sounds like there's a parallel issue where there are some cultural things that you can do to make life easier that are separate from the policy issues. Am I understanding that correctly?
Who would like to answer that?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for that question. It's a great one. I will note, and it's probably warrants a longer answer, but I will just say that inside of your question actually are some principles of how it is that we would look at working directly with schools. For example, well-being and burnout and salary and healthcare benefits and external factors are all profound impacts on educators. So is having your fifth reading curriculum in 3 years that no one asked your opinion about, for example. So is attending PD where you was misaligned with actually your job description, for example. So the work of that engage with directly at school levels and at district levels is really in the sort of the minutia of how we manage schools. So how do we have viable teacher leadership teams in each building that helps to inform district and building level decision making? How do we communicate effectively between administration and educators and district admin? So really building internal capacity around the workplace. And so I'm just going to keep using workplace as sort of a new lens of addressing an old problem, and that is really thinking about the value that our employees bring to their own work and lived experience. So while we cannot ameliorate some of those external factors entirely, managing those factors in a more collaborative, thoughtful, and structured manner certainly lessens the deleterious effects of those external factors.
Representative Perez-Vega.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Rep. Hill, for bringing this. I love having conversations with educators, with teachers in my school district and in other school districts outside of where I represent. And when you think about the realities of what we've faced since the pandemic and all those tier 3 teachers coming back and wanting to go into tier 4, and they're saying it's because it's a support system. And that has been through a village of educators communicating via Zoom, and now in their lunches when they have 15 minutes, if they even get 15 minutes to breathe. And so for me, this is just amplifying a call for action for those educators that are sticking through and want to mentor more folks into the field by keeping it real, right? And I appreciate the testifiers who came to talk about the realities and the data, the research, how this not only is a way to be able to support those educators that have stuck around for over 5 years, right? But also an opportunity to say, we are the coaches for the next generation of what is going to be the advancement of, yes, the workforce, right? But a good overall healthy Minnesotan. And those children, our children of Minnesota, our students of Minnesota deserve that. And how you get it is by making sure that our educators are getting what they want. And it's bare minimum of requests of saying, this is what we need. It's taken a village to get us through this. Can our state now help get us through this in what we're facing presently? And so I appreciate you, because that's been amplified by so many of the educators that I have been speaking with, not just in my district, but throughout this entire state. And they are very thankful for you to bring this bill up too as well. Gracias.
Thank you, Representative Paris-Vega. Representative Green.
Thank you so much, Chair. And thank you, Representative Hill, for bringing this, this forward. I just signed onto the bill, sitting here, so I just so am grateful for the focus and attention on this. I come from a family, I have a lot of teachers in my family. We are a district where we don't, in my school district, you know, we have pretty high teacher retention, and they are still telling me all of these things. So, and I appreciate, like, the shared, you know, I don't know, however you put that. Pollination, thank you. I couldn't remember the word. The pollination word that Representative Quam used. No, I appreciate that, and I think that is true and something that we need to do. But I do think this is such a major issue, and I think we as legislators down here need to make sure when we're passing legislation that we are thinking about this all the time and through the lens of teachers. I don't know any teacher that goes into education for the money, and I don't know any teacher who goes into it not to try and make a difference in the lives of kids. That is consistent across the board, across our whole country. And so I just, I really appreciate this. I think we need to get out of the way a little bit too and make sure that when we're passing stuff here, that we are truly thinking about the whole system and making sure the students are at the center, because I think that will help as well. So I'm very much in support and grateful that you brought this. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Green. With that, I don't see any further questions from the table. Representative Hill, would you like to wrap up your bill?
Yeah, I wanted to point out briefly that I'm honored to be a teacher. It's my dream job. And there are challenges associated with the profession. And nothing hurts worse than losing a colleague who is really good at what they did in that setting. And, you know, I just want to offer that. You know, I've had people without a snicker come to me and what was that movie, Dory? Tell me to just keep swimming when things are tough or there's challenges. I've been blessed with really good building leaders and really hardworking and focused school board members in the district where I've been for most of my career. But it's not that way everywhere. And, you know, my first teaching job was in an adjacent school district, and it was very different climate, just 10 miles up the road. And so if there's a way on a scalable effort that we can begin to have this conversation and talk about this, I think it's going to meet the needs of our students better, and it's going to make our education system stronger. So thank you for the opportunity to get the conversation going.
Thank you, Representative Hill. With that, Representative Hill renews his motion that House File 3930 be laid over for further discussion.